This is part 2 of our shooting fundamentals series, grip. Now, all the fundamentals are important. However, I have to emphasize that having the proper grip is incredibly important when it comes to shooting. It really makes a huge difference. In this section, I'll be discussing the mechanics of the grip, presentation and building your grip, and then I'll be suggesting a drill for development. A lot of people don't know that shooting with two hands is actually a recent development. 1970s, Jack Weaver was one of the innovators of shooting with two hands. If you look at training films of military and law enforcement prior to that, you'll see people mostly shooting with one hand, very bladed, shooting with one hand. Shooting with two hands gives us a lot of advantage because that extra point of contact and support helps us mitigate recoil and helps us with trigger control and so forth. So we're going to talk about developing our grip and the mechanics of the grip. Now, if you look at the development over the years of two-handed shooting, you'll notice that we went from what we call the teacup grip, which was basically the support hand cupping and almost like a little pedestal holding the gun underneath, slowly developed as time went on. The hands started getting up higher until we reached our modern iteration, which is about like this, because people figured out that the more skin-to-gun contact you have, the more control you have. The question is, once you do have two hands on the gun, what is the best way to employ your physical mechanics to be able to maximize the pressure on the gun? All right. So for that, I use this analogy here. You probably recognize this. The way you crack the claw is we have a pin up here, and using leverage, we can use that to crack the claw. We're going to do the same thing basically with our hands. The pin is going to be up here, and we're going to crush the gun. Let's see, if I use this frame here as an example, I'm going to drive my gun hand into my support hand like this, and this is where you create the pin. And then I'm going to bring the hands together, and the drumstick of my support hand, in my case my left hand, is going to occupy this space so that I have positive contact with the grip. Notice that all the gaps are sealed off. In other words, I am completely enveloping the gun with my hands. An example of a gap is, for example, if a gun was too large for a particular hand size, you might see that kind of thing going on. You'll notice in the back here, there's a huge gap. That's going to translate to loss of control. So obviously, finding a gun that fits your hand is quite important. And when you do, you want to make sure that your grip completely envelops the gun. You'll notice my left wrist has about a 45-degree angle on it. And this would be pretty much exclusive, say, to a semi-automatic pistol. Let me quickly cover revolvers. The grip's a little bit different because with a revolver, we have a danger zone. That's right here. This front gap, hot gases come out of there when you fire the gun. So you would not want to hold a revolver in this way, because especially if it's a higher caliber revolver like a .357 Magnum, it's going to blow the tip of your thumb off, all right? So we don't want that. So for the revolver, we're still going to apply the pin concept here, but instead of my support thumb coming under my dominant thumb, it's going to come over the top and pinch down. This is known as the universal grip because you can use it on revolver and you can use it on semi-automatic. A lot of fantastic shooters use the universal grip. It's not my personal preference. I like to have positive contact with the grip with my support hand like this. It makes me feel much more in control of the gun. However, for those of you that shoot both semi-automatic and revolver, the universal grip is certainly a legitimate option. Continuing on, what we want to do is after we build our pin here, we're going to apply friction and leverage to crush the gun between our hands. All right, so that brings me into presentation. For this, I'll do a live fire demonstration. I'm going to demonstrate a couple of presentations, one from the holster and one from a compressed ready. Just keep in mind that for this particular facility, the Alamo, we don't permit holster draw on the range. However, some of you may shoot competition or practice on an outdoor range where they do permit holster draw. So I want to at least demonstrate that as well. What I want you to watch is as I come out of the holster, the two hands marry. I'm going to drive my gun hand into my support hand. you'll see the hands crush together and build the grip and apply leverage with my arms. I'm going to fire 2 rounds so that you can watch the recoil control. Actually, I'll fire 3 so you can see the recoil control. The gun should move very little and snap right back onto your target, okay, into your point of aim. Then I will do a couple from the compressed ready. Matter of fact, I'll start with those. So compressed ready would be here. Right now my hands are sort of relaxed, ready to go. I'm going to go slow motion. I'm going to extend. The hands come together. Friction, leverage. All right. So that looks like that. And again, that. Now I'll go from the holster. Slow motion. I'm out. Gun hand drives into support. Grip forms. Back. One more time from the holster, a little faster. This is a drill that you can use to assess and develop your grip. It's called a bill drill. Traditionally, the bill drill is conducted at 7 yards. It's from the holster, and it's 6 rounds as fast as you can control the gun. Ideally, you want all your hits to be sort of in the A zone of the target. However, it doesn't have to be 6 rounds. It doesn't have to be 7 yards. It could be 5 rounds. It could be 4 rounds. It could be 10 rounds. The point is, at this point, when we're doing our fundamental assessment, we want to ask ourselves a few questions. As you fire, is your hand moving? In other words, are you having to re-grip the gun after every shot or two? Is your support hand walking away from the gun? Is the gun flipping, not allowing you to get back on target? These are all the things you want to be observing. You can also, on a range like this, you can take your phone out and you can film yourself, put your phone down up at an angle and film the gun as you fire and then watch it. So kind of being your own instructor. Once you get into the time component, you can then use one of these handy dandy timers. For now, I'll just use it as a starting signal. I'm not really going to go for top time here fast as possible. What I want to go for here is control. I want to maintain a steady cadence of fire. I want to make sure that the gun does not flip in my hand and returns to its point of aim immediately. I also want to make sure to control my trigger, which will be another section altogether. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate a bill drill from a low ready position since we're on a range where holster draw is not really permitted. Let's go from a low ready and then we'll do another one from a compressed ready. And I'll use the timer, as I said, just as a start. Instead of 6 rounds, I'll fire 5. All right, starting from the low ready position, I'm pointing at the bottom edge of the cardboard right now. I'm going to fire 5 rounds, and I'm going to go kind of at a slow speed to maintain my cadence and see how the gun feels in my hand. Okay. I know you can't see the target, but I'm looking at the target. We got all 5 shots in a pretty small group, about a 1.5-inch group. So that was very controlled. You saw how the gun returned. So you can then start pushing it a little bit and start bringing up the speed. And when you reach that point of failure, that's going to be kind of your edge, okay, of your ability. You want to constantly push that edge. So let's go again. That time was 3:43. A little faster. Obviously, my shot group spread out a little bit, still pretty much in the A zone there, and that was 225. All right. So again, experiment with different distances, experiment with different round counts, 5 rounds, 6 rounds, 7 rounds, and make observations. Make sure that when you're doing these drills, you're not just throwing lead down range, you're actually assessing what you're doing. Your target is data for you to look at. The group on that target is going to tell you a lot about what you're doing right or doing wrong.